On episode 33 of the Whitetail Edge Podcast, we're joined by Lincoln Rohn with Packer Maxx, the portable cultipacker we've learned to love and trust for all our food plot projects.
Okay, everybody, welcome to Whitetail Edge. This is Ben Rising, and I'm with Javen Mollet. And today our special guest is Lincoln Rohn from Packer Maxx. How you doing, Lincoln?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Great. Nice to have you on. And Lincoln, tell everybody where you're at, where you're located.
So our main shop is right here in Rockford, Michigan. We're just north of Grand Rapids.
Gotcha. Yep. And is that where you were born and raised?
Yeah, I was born just outside of Grand Rapids, and my parents actually still live in the same house I was born in and raised in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's familiar with Packer Maxx, but Packer Maxx is a cultipacker that Lincoln invented that fills with water. And that way you can easily transport it, move it around, makes things super nice to be able to just make it more transportable for people with, small vehicles or small trailers, don't have big equipment.
Yep.
And then when you get it to wherever you're going, you can fill it with water, or it has wheel kits to flip it over, make it easier to pull. Pretty interesting. So how long have you guys been doing this?
So I'd like to take credit for designing it, but I didn't actually physically design it. But I'm not that smart. But I was smart enough to buy the company when I had the chance. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, I bought the company about 6 years ago. I think we are in our sixth year. I had the original owner. I have a big page in Michigan. It's called Michigan Deer Hunters. Let them go and let them grow. We've got about 40,000 members, and just working on trying to get better age class here in Michigan, because we all know we struggle with that. And so the gentleman that owned the company donated a couple of these things to our couple of our events, and so I got to know him pretty well. And he called me up one day and said, "Hey, I'm selling my business, and I'm wondering if you care if I post it on your page." And I said, "Well, let's talk about that first." So we talked it through, and we struck a deal, and I call it my Shark Tank deal. Basically, I gave him a down payment, and I paid him a royalty until the business was paid for, and the rest is history. So
Nice.
yeah, so it's been a really, really, I mean, it's been a wild ride, no doubt. But yeah, it's been a really good opportunity for us, for sure.
Lincoln, how many Packer Maxes do you guys make a year?
It varies. Kind of at the last couple of years, it's not a secret. The economy's not been really, really good the last couple of years. So, typically we do somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 a year. Sometimes I think our top, our best year was 1,400, and last year was somewhere around 800. So, it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely, the economy has not helped us at all. And but we're already seeing this year, we're already seeing a pretty marked increase, in sales for the year to date, which we're really excited about, because obviously there's a lot of businesses out there that really need to have a good 25. So
yeah. Do you guys do any other stuff at your shop, or you just Packer Maxx?
So at our we have a kind of a small I call it my shop. We have a brick and mortar here. We have food plot seed. We have the deer ponds, the earth blind deer ponds.
Earth ponds is you?
Yeah, yep.
I never knew that.
Well, we sell them. We don't own the company. We sell them
You
in
sell
our shop.
them. Okay.
Yep. And I mean, we sell liquid fertilizers, just various like spreaders and sprayers and stuff like that too in our shop here. But on our main website, the packermax.com website, it's our Packer Maxx, and again we do have our seed on there as well.
I gotcha.
So So a little bit of everything. We got, a couple blinds out front, and we get a fair amount of foot traffic in here too. So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, there's people already. Well, we did a bunch of frost seeding
yeah,
already, but I've seen some people, posting about scratching out clover plots and,
yep,
frost seeding them now and,
yep,
just to get a good head start. And that seed to soil contact is what's so important, like
yeah,
with a Packer Max.
yeah, for sure. It's we always say, attention to detail. And I know sometimes, it can be real easy just to grind up the ground, throw some seed down, and let Mother Nature do her thing. But man, the final step of the food plot process is, packing that seed in, get that seed set into the soil, and it's going to increase your germination rates. It's going to increase your moisture retention, and then obviously your overall food plot performance too, because you're helping to maintain that soil moisture by
Sure.
compacting everything and putting the soil moisture channels into the soil. So
Yeah.
makes a
I
huge difference.
I love how it grooves the soil,
Yeah, yeah,
and same with like even if you spread liquid products on it
hmm,
later or granulated,
yep,
it just seems to fall in those crevices and keep things
yep,
where they need to be,
yeah, yeah, for
and it
sure.
makes it look pretty.
Yep. We've we've done some experimenting with planting corn and beans. Just like we'll till or disc and then pack it so you've got the nice grooves in the soil, and then broadcast corn and beans, and those fall down into the grooves, and then we'll pack it again. And man, we've had some really good
Really,
stands
no
of corn and
kidding.
beans. Yeah, yeah, it works
Huh.
really well.
So basically, they don't need to be if probably weather conditions, but if they get started and germinated right, they'll grow properly without being buried,
Yeah,
you know,
yep,
too deep.
yep, yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then
Interesting.
keeping that moisture tight to that seed is, I think the critical part. So,
Okay.
but
Huh.
yeah, and you mentioned too the ability to drain the water out of it and transport it to other properties, throw it in the back of your truck, take it to a buddy's property. There's so many guys these days have multiple properties, and it's not always in the budget to buy equipment for every single property. You pay
Hmm.
enough for leases and property, so being able to drain the water out, bring it to another property is has been huge for us too. Plus, they're so much easier, as you are aware, moving them around when they're empty. You can hang it on the barn wall. In the winter
Yeah.
if you need to get it up out of the way.
Sure.
If you have a wheel kit, you can just stand it up, and it just takes a little section in the barn. So, but
Yeah. No, they're slick. I mean, since we've got a few of them in our hands,
hmm,
I just so much easier than using the old grandpa's cultipacker.
yeah, yeah, for
you know,
sure, for sure.
uh, they
But
definitely make life easier. Javen had one in the back of his little Toyota Rav4.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me out a lot this year.
Perfect.
I mean, it's so versatile, and like Ben said, I can drain the water out and even pack it in the back of my Rav4,
Hmm.
or load it on the back of my trailer with my four wheeler. I just have a little 4x8 trailer, and I can
Yep.
empty the water and load it up by hand, and
Yep.
then fill it again, and then roll it off and use it out on the farm. It's been a huge help for me this year.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a lot of guys get pretty creative in their water sources too. My my nephew on a farm down in Ohio brought it up to the top of one of the benches, and there was a flowing creek up there. So he just backed it down in the creek and stood on it, filled it with water, packed his plot, drained it out, and into the plot. Got some extra water in there, and then drove it back down the mountain. So
Yeah. Well, they
uh,
can fill water holes with them too. Like if you've
yeah,
got those earth ponds,
yep,
you can take and you know, essentially transfer water.
yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, just yesterday I was talking to a gentleman on the phone that called in, and he ended up ordering one, but he's actually gonna drive up here from Indiana to get one of the earth ponds from our shop, And he's like, man, I can just fill my earth pond with that thing. I'm like, yeah, you just got to be able to, pull up next to it pretty much and pull the plug. And, they hold about 40 gallons of water. So you couple of trips and you'll have that thing filled right up. So,
Gotcha.
but
It's funny that because we were just literally looking at earth ponds the other day.
really,
Because I was researching, we want to do some more water holes on some of the properties this year.
yep,
And we were looking at different options because, like, I try to want to avoid the EHD possibility as much as possible with
Yep.
muddy banks.
yep,
And like Grizzly makes a watering trough type deal you can bury.
hmm
Earth Ponds has one, and there was some other one I saw. But what? Now that we're on that subject,
sure.
what's the big add to the hype about the Earth Pond?
So the earth pond, what I really like about them is the edge, that the edges are sloped and they're like, there's sand that's actually molded into the fiberglass. And so that sand, it has a texture to it, so critters can climb out with no problem. I have never found a dead frog or a dead mouse in our earth ponds at all. And the other thing with those two, as you mentioned, EHD, you're keeping, animals away from other water sources, for the most part, where they might pick up a midge, and you can also put. Banks makes it's called wild water. It's got electrolytes and probiotics in it. You can in a berry flavor. So you can put in. I think it's got mineral in it as well. So you can add that additive to it. So not only are you getting them the water they need, but you're also getting the electrolytes, the probiotics, and the mineral as well. So we also you can strategically place them. Like we've got one on one of a main. We have like one ridge on our property in Michigan, and I've got it on that ridge, and that feeds down right into my food plot. So on the way to the plot, they stop, get a drink. I always put mock scrapes by them also. So they're either hitting the mock scrape and then drinking, or drinking and hitting the mock scrape and then coming into the food. So and
Yeah, you're
they
speaking my language with those mock scrapes.
Oh, nothing better, man. I think I've killed so many freaking deer off mock scrapes. Illinois
Mm-hmm.
here. Matter of fact, the buck that's in this picture right here, I shot in Ohio, just after he worked the mock scrape, and he turned and started walking away, and I let him have it. So,
Yeah, it's awesome.
but
I love mock scrapes.
yep,
It's amazing how communicative those deer are and how they want to be territorial
yeah,
and show. Well, they want to tell everybody they're there.
yeah,
It's their way of talking to each other.
yep,
You know, um,
yeah. The
one thing
social.
I always social.
Yep. Like I've got a couple of main scrapes in Illinois. They're just community scrapes, and I tell you, we get everything from button bucks and fawns all the way through 180-inch bucks on them, and
Mm-hmm.
everything in between. And
Yep.
it's if I was smart and I hunted this one particular scrape a little bit more, I'd probably have a lot bigger bucks on my wall. But I seem to
Mm-hmm.
like to bounce around too much down
Yeah.
there, and they always show up when I'm at another stand.
Yeah.
So
Well, the hard part too is those like you're always afraid to burn a spot
yeah,
out, or if the wind isn't right,
yep,
you know.
100%. So
I always laugh. I I read, I used to read a lot of deer hunting articles, and I still do to a degree,
mhm,
but just doesn't seem to be as much good reading out there as there used to be.
yeah,
But I always used to love the articles where guys would talk about how the bucks would check the scrapes from downwind 40, 50 yards away, and that's where you needed to hang your stand. I have never seen a deer do that.
no, I hunt.
Have you?
I hunt right over top of them.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I was going to say. I
I got a
mean,
bow shot to it. I'm good.
yeah, same here. I mean, I have never once seen a big deer scent check a scrape from a distance.
Mm-mm.
It's like they always want to come to it.
Yeah, especially those community scrapes. But yeah, I hunt right on them, man. If I've got a good setup, and the one that I had, one of the main scrapes down in Illinois, like that was a mock scrape that I started.
Mm-hmm.
I've been hunting that scrape for 10 years now, and every year they come right back to that same spot. And yeah, like I said, I'd have a lot bigger bucks on the wall if I would have concentrated a little bit more on that spot. But again, to your
Well,
point, I don't want to burn it out either. So,
yeah.
but
I think those deer, like community scrapes, like I think a lot of people don't understand, like community scrapes to
mhm.
breeding scrapes to territorial scrapes.
Yep,
That's something I need to dive into a little more on this podcast for people,
yeah,
but setting up mock scrapes, I think people don't realize that it's just as eye appeal to a
yeah,
deer, if anything,
100%, 100%.
you
I
know.
agree. I've had super good luck with so especially in Illinois, I take a vine, I'll cut a vine that's usually inch and a quarter in diameter, 6 feet long. I tie it to a branch and hang the vine straight down, and that's been really really good for me.
Yeah.
Up here in Michigan, we do the a scrape tree in the middle of our food plots,
Hmm.
and I use a like a oh, I forget what they call those brackets that I put a popple tree in the, bury it in with a
Hmm.
post hole digger. I'll screw it to the popple tree and I'll put a oak branch in it. And because the oak branches hold their leaves up here
Yep.
longer. And so they just annihilate that thing. It's almost like a poodle to a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
I mean, those bucks
Oh, it
come,
is.
it's
I
crazy.
say it's fish to structure.
Yeah. A hundred,
So, like,
yep.
if, when you have something like that,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a rubbing post, like a cedar post,
Yep.
or you have a scrape tree or a water hole or all of it right there,
Yep.
they're coming to it when they
Yep.
come into that plot. At
Yep.
some point, they're going to come to it.
Yep, 100%. I agree. I've got so many videos of deer walking into my food plot, and I mean beeline to that scrape, and
Hmm.
I've killed a lot of deer off of that set. So
Yeah.
over the years,
What, just out of curiosity, what's your biggest buck? Like, doesn't even have to be score wise, just like what's one of the big deer you've killed?
so this one right here from Ohio was 163. That was I sent the teeth in. I like sending the teeth in. I'll shoot a 6-year-old deer so fast your head will spin even if it's only 130 inches. I mean,
Hmm.
if I know that
Yeah.
deer's 6, I'm killing it. And
Yeah.
so I like sending her teeth in. This one was 5.5. I've hunted quite a bit in Saskatchewan. I've gone to Saskatchewan 5 times, deer hunting and once bear hunting. Um, my biggest buck up there, those deer are completely different. Like every deer that I've shot, field dressed up there has been over 275 pounds. They're
Hmm.
just absolute behemoths. My biggest was the 302 pounds field dressed, but it was only 141 inches. But it had
Wow.
like 38 inches of mass, and it was
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
mainframe 8 point. So um, and then I sent teeth in on him, and he was 8.5 years old.
Hmm.
So that's probably my coolest buck. In Saskatchewan, though, my biggest buck was 158, and it's was the smallest body at 265. So, and that was 5.5 also.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of one of my first 200 incher. I shot in Ohio.
Hmm.
He grossed like 204. That deer only he was one of the smallest bodied deer I think I'd ever shot
Oh
as
man,
far as bucks.
yeah,
It was, and I wonder sometimes if like those really high scoring deer, not all of them, but if some of them don't put more into their antlers than they do their skeletal system, like
yeah,
if they're geared that way.
yeah, for sure. You're talking 200 inchers. I've never even seen a 200 incher in the wild. I saw one
Really?
that was probably pretty close in
Huh.
Illinois, but that was like we figured he was probably in the 90s, and I unfortunately hit him high, and he lived another day. And
Gotcha.
but we called him Triple X because I had so many pictures of him. Called him deer porn, so we called him
Mm,
Triple X.
yeah.
But yeah,
Huh.
my buddy just shot one down in Illinois this past season. Ended up it was a 14 scorables. It was in the 50s, like 155, I think, and we walked up to it, and I didn't say anything right away, And I let him, I'm like, I'm not saying nothing. And he goes, I think that deer's 3. I said,
Mm.
I'm pretty sure you're right. And
Yeah,
just
I'm guilty.
you know, and I said, I'm not saying I wouldn't have shot it because I probably would have
Yeah.
hammered that thing,
Well, I
but
mean, I messed up. Well, it was 23. Yeah, fall of 23. I shot a deer in Illinois, same thing.
hmm
And I mean, this deer just plain fooled me.
yeah,
I mean, trail cam pictures, everything. I don't know how, because like I've showed numerous people the trail cam videos of this deer walking,
hmm
and they're like, "Man, that's a 5-year-old."
yeah,
And we shot the deer. Me and Javen. Javen was filming me. It was our first hunt of the season together.
uh-huh,
It was my first time in where I wanted to get on this deer, and we got him by 8:30 that morning. I had him coming back to the bedding area, and I grunted and messed with him. He was rubbing his antlers. Everything was just perfect. It
yeah,
was a great hunt. Had me
cool,
all jacked up. And then he come in. I could just tell it 100% that it was his rack. I was looking at a wall of tines, and I
yep,
just shot him. We get up to the deer, and I literally just wanted to throw my bow. I mean, I've never been fooled by a deer as
yeah,
much as I was that
yeah.
deer.
It's easy to do. Sometimes, and and again, I'm, I'm in the category like again, I'm, I want to shoot older deer. I'm in no way, shape, or form claiming to be anywhere in your league at all. Not even close.
Oh, well,
But
I
we're talking 145, inch deer. That's a solid 4 or 5 year old. I'm probably gonna target that deer. But
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
I have been extremely blessed to be able to hunt some bigger deer, and I
hmm
don't know. I mean, I used to spend a lot of time looking for them,
yeah,
like a lot of time.
yeah,
Like I would spend more time looking for a big deer to hunt. Well, for instance, kind of like some of these younger guys do today.
hmm
I just don't hate them like I used to the point to where that I'm going to sacrifice hours and hours of
yeah,
my life looking for the biggest deer I
yeah,
can find. I'm kind of over that stage. I'll be 51 this summer, and
hmm
I've killed a lot of big deer,
yep,
put a lot of effort into it. And as I get older, it's a little bit more about some of the other people around me, some of the land
yep,
management side, finally owning some dirt to
yeah,
myself again, and me and a buddy of mine own some ground together, and just putting back to land. I really enjoy that, and I enjoy seeing the herd,
yep,
what it does, and getting on those deer. Yes, I love that too, but just trying to experience more
yeah,
again and enjoy the hunt itself and the whole experience more so than just I got to go kill the
yeah.
biggest buck I can kill. I mean, don't get me wrong. If it's a
Oh
big
yeah,
deer, I'm hot
yeah,
after
for
it,
sure.
but I don't run the roads like I
Yeah,
used to just
yeah.
looking for them.
I think that is probably a natural progression too as we do get a little older. I'm going to be 56 in May, and I'm closer to 60 than I am 50. But um, yeah, it's about it is about the experience. And in Michigan we have we really struggle to get the deer to 3-year olds.
Hmm.
And I've kind of had to change my mindset here and go, okay, you can't kill 5-year-olds if they're not there. And so, we've kind of shifted like, okay, I'm going to shoot the best deer that I can. I passed 5 3-year-olds in Michigan this year. Um, every single one of them is now dead. So, it's like crap, but I can go somewhere else, and my dad, who's 81, shot one of them, which was, we had 4 generations of our family there, which
Uh,
that's gets to be more important than so I get goosebumps when I talk about that, honestly. Like that was such a cool day,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you can't replace
yeah.
that.
Well, it's just like watching Mr. Fox's,
Mm-hmm.
Fox Hayes' journey,
Yeah.
Toxie's dad over
Yep.
the years through Mossy Oak, and um, being into his 90s, still
Yeah.
shooting turkeys and deer, and what an experience that
Yeah.
was for their family, to be able there to
Yep.
be with their papa
Yep.
and do that, a lot of people just loved watching
Yep.
that, you know, but he's not doing so great,
Yeah.
so I don't think he's going to hunt this year from what I
Yeah. That's
understand,
too
but
bad.
he's,
He'll get
just again, like talking to, go
yeah, he'll
ahead.
get just as much enjoyment too out of seeing, his family,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
invest
Yeah,
that. So that's cool.
for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like again, it's like they're so big into Mossy Oak is so big into conservation and land management, and like the Packer Maxx fits right in with that,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
so it's definitely a company that we're glad to be associated with, and we appreciate your support,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
I'm sure we know what it's like. A lot of companies get tugged at left and right from everybody looking. Seems like everybody's carrying a camera and has a show these days.
Yeah. Yep.
You know.
Yeah. We were at the Iowa Classic this past weekend, and I gave away more units than I sold. So, but at the same time, it's all good because it's so hard to, as you're aware, it's hard to keep new content coming. And
Mm-hmm.
let's face it, it's hard to make a cultipacker look sexy online. I mean, it just is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
it's
um, so a lot of
well.
guys do pretty good, and they roll through it. And
Yeah. Well, there's certain things that, like this whole filming game, like there's
hmm
certain products that get a lot of love just because of like what it is.
yeah,
Like your clothing, like,
hmm
we wear muddy clothes in Mossy Oak,
yep,
your bows, things that are in your videos all the time. Well, those categories should demand a little more
right,
compared to somebody like you. It's a seasonal product,
right,
and it makes it tough for guys like us to try to figure out, okay, what can we do for Lincoln
yep,
throughout the year to get some love,
yep,
but for us, it's also like, we're not trying to demand from somebody like you the same kind of,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. It's not like you're carrying it with you in every hunt, and
yeah,
you're going to be sitting in a tree with it. So
we're,
no.
we got our Packer Maxx today and we're dragging out the deer with it today.
So it does make it a little bit challenging, and most of our guys that we have partnered with, as you guys, you understand that, and so they've allowed me to come in it. And I got to tell you, I've been watching you for a long, long time. When you started back with juries, you're always one of my favorites, and
Appreciate that.
it's really cool for me to be sitting here on a podcast with you. I'm not gonna lie, like
Yeah.
this is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I was
No,
kind of
that's
nervous
awesome.
at first.
I'm just, well, hey, dude, like, I don't think I've truly understood the effect that, God has allowed me to have had on some people,
Yeah, 100%.
um, and I truly owe a lot to Mark and Terry for giving me that platform at one point to
Yeah.
become, I guess, who, in a sense, I was somewhat destined to be, I feel.
hmm
Um, and it was my wife that got me started doing it, actually. I mean, I hunted, but she got me into the filming.
Yeah.
But, um, I just had no idea the impact I had on people till I started Whitetail Edge and I started meeting people at shows on our own.
Yep.
And, it was really humbling. And
Yeah.
so I really, truly want, I don't know, like, I hope that God continues to use the brand and the show to
hmm
just be a good role model for people and,
Yep.
help people learn something. And I get to meet great people like you that have, like, a lot of people know who I am, but I don't know a lot of people,
hmm
but these people come up to me at shows and it's like they've known me for 20 years because they
Yeah.
have.
Right.
They've watched me for 20 some years shoot deer on video,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Well,
like I literally had a guy cry and start hugging me like a grown man. Like this dude was in his 50s and like he just put his arms around me and he hugged me. He's like, dude, I've wanted to meet you my whole life.
That's so cool.
Now let me tell you, when that happens to you, you realize that you have a responsibility.
Yes, sir. I agree.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
you better keep yourself in check because you don't want to let all these people down.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, honestly, it's a big responsibility, and you know, you a lot. So people are watching, and and I have a similar situation on a much smaller scale, but like, people, hey man, they follow my stuff, and
Sure.
I'm in January. I celebrated my 23rd year of sobriety,
Oh,
and
awesome.
and I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys if it wasn't for that and for God and
Yeah.
him perfectly laying out this orchestrated recovery process for me. And and it was 23 years, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna post anything about it this year. 23 years, no big deal. And my wife's like, that's a big deal. Like, somebody might need to hear that. So I posted it, and it's just almost inevitably I have people reach out to me that are struggling with some sort of an addiction. And I take, so yeah, you got to kind of take that pretty seriously, and love people and help them and teach them, and
How many years did you say it was your sobriety?
yeah, 23 years.
23 years. Yeah.
Yep.
That's there's a lot of people listening to this. I guarantee you have been through that,
Yeah.
you know.
Or are in it.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
mean, what would your advice be to those people that maybe are struggling with it?
Man. I think my advice would be, um, let God take control of it and turn it over. And He wants to help you, and He can help you. Um, lean on your family. Lean on people that will support you, not people that want to drag you down to their level. Sometimes it's hard to make. It's you got to make choices. And sometimes walking away from people you thought were your friends is one of those choices.
Gotcha.
And especially early on, if you like, I couldn't be around it. It'd be like going to the barber shop and sitting there for months on end expecting never to get a haircut. You know, so and again, the Lord's blessed me with my wife of now 13 years. The minute I shared with her when we started dating that I didn't drink, and why, she hasn't drank since, not a sip, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't have it in my house. I couldn't, I just wouldn't be able to be with somebody. And I don't, not that I have a problem with other people drinking, because
Sure.
I'm around it quite often, but I just can't have it in my home,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Well,
You know.
your weakness.
Yep.
You know where you're
Yep.
at.
Yep. There's a picture that I refer to often, and it's a shot glass with a pistol underneath of it, and the dude's putting it to his mouth, and that speaks to me. Like,
Mhm.
that speaks to me.
Well, it's
So,
it's pretty awesome that you
yeah.
were able to recognize that,
Yeah.
and thankful you
Yep.
were able to get through it, and you got a wife that supports you.
Yeah. Yep. And my family and my friends, and one of my buddies, my best friend, he's the only one that basically stuck with me through my recovery. So I would say he's kind of a jerk, but I cut him a lot of slack.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, there's probably a lot of people, that deal with all this day and age, man. There's just stuff hitting you from all angles.
Oh man, yeah, 100%. Food, alcohol, drugs, porn, hunting.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we can idolize
You know?
so many different things.
Yeah.
Like we've talked
Yeah.
about it on here about putting deer first over
Yep.
more important
Family
things.
and
Yeah,
God
like
and
God,
work.
family. Yeah, it can happen. And truthfully, I
Yep.
think that's why some of the reason why I backed off. Like I still always am going to hunt big deer,
Sure.
but
Absolutely.
chasing them and putting the time into them, like I did when I probably shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I do feel like God had a plan. You know,
Sure.
because there is no doubt that the big deer that I did harvest is what gave me this platform to be able
Yeah.
to, and I think God's using it in a good way. Like
Mhm.
we've had a really good impact on a lot of young people. We've had, you know, do seminars at churches, things
Yep.
like that. And so I just think it's God just works in mysterious ways, you know, and he pulls you through the tough times. I mean, he just, you know, just
Yeah.
like David in the Bible, he used David. David, you know, it says in the Bible that David was after God, a man after God's own heart. And David
Yep.
had some pretty big sins, you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yep.
he was forgiven, he repented and he was forgiven and he still became what God wanted him to be. So
Yeah.
that's always
Yeah,
hopeful
for
for
sure.
people that are listening too. You know, if you're struggling with something and
Mhm.
like you said, basically you've got to submit.
Yep.
You've got to submit to that higher
think-
power.
Yeah, I think what what finally got my attention, you know, when my former wife, you know, when she left me, I lost my kids, I lost my family. I think God had me right where he needed me. Like I had nothing. I had the clothes on my back and I was like I had nowhere to turn except for him. And but he had to bring me to that to get my attention.
Yeah.
And because I mean, I'd been through outpatient rehab 3 times, you know, oh, I got this, you know, big deal. And, you know, right back at it. And so, but yeah, I'm actually speaking in a church at a wild game dinner on Friday night. And this is going to kind of be one of the main topics.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, dude. Now,
Pretty cool.
I love you even more now, dude. Like,
Yeah.
because, you know, it's hard. It takes a lot for people to admit the wrongs or, you know, maybe their past, but if they can help other people to not go down that rabbit hole,
Yep.
it's so much better, you know?
Yeah. I've been blessed along the way too and that's part of staying sober and recovery. And, you know, you ask the people that have been sober for a long time, you know, what's one thing that helps keep you sober, and that is helping other people. And you know, I've had some people come my way along the way, and you know, probably a dozen that you know that I've been able to walk through this with them, and you know, get them some help.
Yeah.
And most recently, you know, this young guy that you know had world going for him, multi-million-dollar business. Not that that means anything, but
Sure.
you know, just you know, super dude, and he just could not quit drinking. And you know, he's about gosh, he's got to be pretty close to 6 months sober now. So which is monumental. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like that saying, you know, being rich or having money isn't everything. It can help, but man, and again, as we age, you realize what things truly matter.
Yep.
You know, and
100%.
it's like I refer to a lot, like, you know, when I was younger and whatever, like, you know, you're flying down the road, a groundhog runs out or a possum, boom, boom, you know, you're swerving to hit them.
Right.
And now
Going into the ditch.
Yeah. And now you're like, oh, you're swerving to miss that possum because you're like, that poor dude's just trying to live, man.
Right. You're just trying to eat this roadkill.
Yeah, I'm just trying to survive. And you just realize how short life is as you get older.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I mean, the Bible talks about it. It's like a withering flower.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and it's hard to, and I know, you know, some people, like, we have lost a lot of followers on this show because of I speak about this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like it always ends up here. Every podcast ends up, and I can't help it. But that's just where my heart is, dude. Like,
yeah, I
I
had no idea it was going to go there.
Yeah,
you know, like
it just always does. God always directs it this way, and it's like my thing is it's like I don't want my friends not going to heaven.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's real. Like, eternity is real. It's either eternity in hell or eternity in heaven. One of the two. You got to pick.
You got a choice.
Yeah,
And
it's
so.
And I'm just very convicted about it. Like, I'm not afraid to talk about it. And if I lose followers over it, I do.
Yep.
But it's because I care.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. For sure.
So yeah, it's just one of them deals. But man, we're not going to keep you because we know we took some of your time earlier just waiting for this to get right. But dude, we super appreciate your support, your friendship.
Yeah, for sure.
And just thanks for taking the time to be on. And maybe we need to get together sometime and do a deer hunt.
That'd be awesome, man. That would be awesome. I would be honored. That would be really cool.
Yeah, and you're not that far away if you're in Michigan.
No. Yeah. You said we're just north of GR, 10 minutes, and so it's not
okay.
Not a bad trip. We used to have a lease down in Pike County, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and trespassers and unfortunately meth heads kind of ruined it for us.
Yeah.
But
That
so we let
seems
that
to
one
be
go.
a big problem in the southern Ohio. I mean, like,
breaks my heart.
I tell people that all the time. Like, honestly, everybody's like, why don't you hunt more southern Ohio or own land down there? And that has been my experience as well. Like, I've dealt with more thieving, even on our logging jobs and things, in those areas than I have anywhere.
Yeah, I've got a picture of one of the locals walking out of my lease with my tree stand over his shoulder, and you send it to the police, and their hands are tied, and they're like, what am I going to do? Go arrest the dude, and then he's going to be out the next morning. So and he's probably going to fight me.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just opt to not do anything, unfortunately.
I had some guys burn a car on my lease in Kentucky.
Oh, jeez.
Oh yeah, dude. Drove it into the creek and they tore it apart and smoked it right there.
Good grief.
And we got pictures of them walking out. They won't do nothing.
The lease, or the property that's across the street from our lease, the dude, they blew up their house making meth, and then they pulled in a mobile trailer, and then they blew that up, and then they pulled in a camper, and they blew that up.
It's like the movie Breaking Bad.
It is. It's like, and again, my heart goes out to him because I mean, I was, I was an alcoholic, but there's not much difference between, or you could be in that position super easy.
Yeah, addiction is addiction, and it does, again, it can be, like you said, it can be pornography, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be so many different things, and can wreck your life if you can't get it controlled. For sure. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying, like, even hunting, like, simple things can literally take over and blind you as to the most important things in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got 12 grandkids and hopefully 13 fairly soon, and I've actually been on a health kick here. Like, I want to be healthy for I've lost 46 pounds here in the last 6 months, and like, I want to be there and present for them, not sitting on the sidelines with a cane. So it's pretty important to me. So what's important. So kind of on that point too, like, if you are listening and you are struggling, look me up. Seriously, I'd love to talk to you. And I'm not saying I know everything, but I know what worked for me, and I'd be willing to talk to anybody about it. So all right.
Yeah, and we're the same. I mean, people are more than welcome to message us, DM us on our platforms if they have questions about faith or any of that stuff, or we can connect you with Lincoln, or it's definitely it's the struggle is real out there for people these days, and not to get into politics, but it does seem like maybe we can get our head above water a little bit here with this country being back to somewhat normal morals. Which feels good. It's going to take some time for things to heal economically, and there's a lot going on right now. Just, it's probably going to affect you too with these tariffs, with steel and with your products, but Our country has been in such a disarray for the last so many years.
Yeah.
Not even just the last 4, the last 20.
Yep.
It's been, jobs have been leaving, and, maybe this is, if we grin and bear it and deal with a little bit of suffering for a while, we'll get it back to where it needs to be. And I think we're also spoiled here. Nobody likes discomfort.
Right. No, you're 100% correct. And I think, my personal feelings are we are on the edge of the golden era. And I think that, there has been an awakening for sure in this country spiritually, and getting back to the basics of, of family, God, church, whatever. And I think it's, and again, just, I guess I've got a close personal relationship with the Lord. I don't necessarily go to church every week, but, sometimes you start to float. But to me, it's more about my connection with God. And, where I find, there's that song, it's where I find God. I can find him, I find him outdoors, man.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well,
or he finds me.
Javen has seen firsthand what people live without, doing his missions works, in the DR, and just explain, Javen, how you feel after experiencing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge change of perspective with the little that people do, and a big thing that I've noticed is it's still contentment and happiness is a mindset.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much or how little you have. Like, there is some people that are super content and they live a really happy, thankful life with very little. But there's still some there that don't live, happy lives. And I mean, you can see that in any culture. I think even up here, like, there's so many people with so many things and they still just want more and more. And it's a mindset, and it's a you deal with it inside your heart.
Yep, I would agree with that. Doing that type of stuff will change you.
It does,
for sure.
But I mean, he's seen people without.
Yeah.
Literally living with no choice.
Yeah.
And there are people like that in our country too. But typically in this country, if you're willing to do any kind of grinding at all, you're not going to go without.
If you live in this country, you are richer than 99% of the population.
That's right.
Of this earth. So we were, I know we want to wrap this up, but we were in South Africa this summer in July. We went down there on a safari. My wife and my niece and nephew went with, or my nephew and niece's his wife. Gosh, can't even talk. Went with us, and even that was an experience. Seeing that culture and seeing people that do go without, and man, it was an awesome trip. It was beautiful. We killed a lot of animals. It was the most beautiful place I've ever been. But we saw a lot of people that had nothing. And, a lot of the animals that we shot, a lot of that meat goes to feed those villages. So,
which is important to them.
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But
well, sweet, dude. Well, right, we'll be in touch, and again, thanks for joining us so much. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we'll have another one out hopefully here next week for you guys to listen to. We're going to have Jeremy Flynn on from Deer Grow eventually here. He's our next guest lined up. So anyways, awesome. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Edge. I'm Ben Rising.
I'm Javen Mullet.
We'll see you, Lincoln. Thanks, buddy.
Right. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
See ya.
All right.